What was that noise? Hello and welcome to my pajama party. My face looks red from the sun today. Hello and welcome to the news that didn't make the news. I have some news for you. So hopefully some of you will show up here. I don't know if it's for my own protection or for my channel's detriment, but I am really experiencing the suppression over here. This is my sweater, aka my blankie. Hello and welcome to the news that didn't make the news. There are a few things that I would like to talk to you about this evening. There's a lot going on, and I'm hoping you are doing your best efforts to stay heart-centered. Hello, Troy. How are you? I haven't seen your face in quite a while. How are you doing, Troy? I have the comments covered up, actually, but I saw your pretty little face, and I moved them just for you. That's because of all the trolls I've had prior to the last six weeks since my channel has been suppressed. We're going to talk about the sun. We're going to talk about comments. We're going to talk about military action. And we're going to talk about levels of this game. Now, to those of you that have been seeing 1111, 444, and 1234, 1234, and 456, and everything else, no pun intended, under the sun, you are aware of this little thing we call synchronicity. Our weather went from like 87 degrees down to 40 degrees at night in one day. Oh, I'm glad to hear you are doing well. That is good news. You are not out on the path of freak out like half of our nation is currently. I have spent more time on Facebook in the last week and a half than I have in the last year. Just basically not even really looking at posts, but reading people's comments to see where they are in this little thing called life. Okay. I've been reading people's comments mostly to gauge, where are we? Where is our first wave of expression? Where is our second wave of expression? And when I say that, I mean, I guess waves of expanded consciousness. So where are we with that? That is the question, I suppose. When reading the comments, I see that most of what appears to be the first wave is not very much on social media whatsoever, or they may be there in silent observation and not really commenting, not really sharing, just kind of observing. As we know, it is so important for us to do is to be able to observe and not absorb what's going on, because there's so much going on, as you know. It is amazing to me what has happened to this channel, but I suppose that's old news. That happened 2 months ago, so I guess I'll go ahead and make this video with only Troy here. There are different levels to this game, and one of the reasons why I mentioned synchronicity to you and repeated numbers is that's a level of this game we're playing. We are a soul, in essence, using or borrowing or leasing this body for no other reason but to express ourselves, express our love, express our joy, express our sadness, express our grief, whatever we are expressing. We are a soul. We are, in essence, a spiritual essence in a physical body, borrowing or leasing that physical body to express ourselves. Now, when we have back to back solar flares, our expression can be disturbed, or the force within our field can be disturbed. So you may feel joyous one moment, you may feel like screaming the next moment, or, you know, kicking, whatever it is. There's all these levels of expression and emotion that we're going through, because when this solar energy comes in, and the bigger it is, the heavier of a role it plays, it comes into the body and moves us greatly at a cellular level. This is sometimes why we may feel like we're on a roller coaster ride and we're not hungry at all, while other times we feel like we're starving. It does a lot of things to us physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And the biggest thing it does is it comes into the body as an expression, as a creative force, as the Son of God enters the body. It stirs up whatever you've got going on in your body, whether that's grief or sadness, happiness, joy, no matter what that is. So you may feel giddy or loving or enchanted or something along a different emotional line, whatever it is you're feeling, will be exaggerated. So we know that this turns us on, that this alters and changes our DNA, and it does so many things to us. And then it causes us to purge, to release whatever it is we were feeling when this solar inundation came in. The one thing I want you to know is I believe we've had, I try to take a quick look at Pat Donworth's, because I knew we had like 3 X-class solar flares, but I think we've had 3 or 4 X-class solar flares just in the last couple of days, and I think we've had a couple of M-class solar flares as well. Now, to the best of my understanding, the higher the number, the more potent that storm, right? So there's nothing that scientists have labeled beyond an X-class solar flare. However, if you have an X1, that's going to be moving at a slower pace towards Earth than an X8 or an X9 or an X908 or whatever we have going on. So even though we've had 3 different solar flares spread across the last 3 or 4 days, if some of those are an X1 or an X2, and then you have an X7, and then you have an X almost 10, what that means is those different CMEs, or coronal mass ejections, are coming in at different speeds. And the reason that I'm mentioning this to you is you may say, oh, I'm noticing quite a disturbance in the force, even though it was just an X2, for example, or an X, 105 or something like that. But if you have a multitude of solar flares leaving the sun at the exact same, not at the exact same time, but altered times, and they are different varying numbers of X-class flares or C-class or M-class or any kind of class flare, they are moving at different speeds. And to the best of my knowledge, the higher the number, the faster that is moving. So let's say in the last 3 or 4 days, we've had 3 X-class solar flares and a couple of M-class flares and a couple of C flares. What then happens is some of the X flares are moving at a pace where they could get here in 2 days. Some are moving at a pace where they'll get here in 6 days. Some are moving at a pace where they'll get here in 5 days. So what happens is when you have 3 X-class flares traveling away from the sun, is those energies are very drawn together. So while you have 3 X-class flares that are at varying degrees and speed, those can collide with each other and form an even bigger plasma ball. Now, I'm not looking at space weather, but I can tell you for sure that this has already happened or is in the progress of happening or it's about to happen. I have never seen solar flare reverberation. I'm losing my pajamas here. I have never seen a solar flare reverberation that is like what we have going on right now. And again, I'm not telling you that I'm talking about scientific fact or scientific proof. I'm telling you what I've experienced in my own neighborhood in the last 5 days is like nothing I've ever seen before, ever. So, say you have a couple of X-class solar flares that collide with each other. And even though scientists may say that that energy is technically not here yet, or it's coming on Friday, or that it's coming this weekend, it doesn't matter because the majority of you and anyone watching this channel is going to be an energy sensitive person anyway. Okay, so if you know what it feels like to have a large X-class solar flare, sometimes you feel like I said, you're on a roller coaster and you're not hungry at all, or you're starving, or you're crying out of nowhere, or you're smiling ear to ear without any explanation. These are all things that happen as that energy moves through our body and then comes back out as an expression. I don't know why my nose itches every single time I'm on camera. I cannot figure that one out. This is the only solar flare where I have ever experienced this kind of energy. I can talk to this degree. So I've talked to you all many times about the fact that in the city, when an X-class solar flare, sometimes it's when they go off and when they're on their way. It can be when they get here as well, but it usually, I notice that it happens. So at some capacity, the human form of the body or the avatar that we are currently leasing feels this thing when it goes off. There is no doubt in my mind that that is the case. I believe we feel it as it gets closer to Earth. I believe we feel it again for the third time when it actually arrives at Earth. So I have, on multiple occasions, expressed what goes on in the middle of the city when we have an X-class flare. Forget 3 like we just had, but just having even one X-class solar flare, I have noticed an upsurge in police, fire trucks, and ambulance. Now, this is a pattern that I have noticed over the last 4 years, and it seems to be growing stronger and stronger. So I will ask us to all consider, myself included, that a lot of the information that we're receiving about the sun is it's topping out at higher levels and doing stronger things than what is being reported. Let me start with that. But as I've been saying for the last 4 years, we have fire trucks, police, and ambulance like crazy every single time there's an X-class solar flare. So knowing that these 3 or 4X, how many it's been in the last 3 or 4 days, have all fired themselves off, and this was something I noticed immediately. So this plasma, I believe, or this collection of energy from this particular collection of solar flares that has been coming our way for the last 4 or 5 days, has somehow found a way to magnetize to itself and become a much greater energy. Again, I do want to stress the fact that I believe that these are bigger than what is being reported. Okay, the system has been on an overload when these are coming in, and these are reaching frequencies, they're reaching plasma densities, they're reaching all kinds of other things that are not being reported, and they're not being reported accurately. Now, even though I've been telling you for the last 4 years that I notice when the next flare comes, the upsurgence in heart attacks, strokes, ambulance, police, fire trucks, violence, all of these things, this is the first solar storm ever where I started noticing this. And this solar storm started, as far as my hearing goes, anyway, about 5 days ago. And what completely coincides with what started 5 days ago was something that I have not ever experienced outside of fire trucks, ambulance, and police. So what I've noticed is, and we have an insane amount of dogs in this neighborhood. This is like the dog loving neighborhood of Cincinnati for whatever reason. I know tons of these people because I walk twice a day. Most everybody out on the road knows me, or at least knows who I am, and probably has a pretty good idea where I live. So it started about 5 days ago. So the neighbor below me, Patrick, has a really cute dog. And this dog barks every time someone comes in the building and every time someone leaves the building. Um, and instead of telling him to be quiet, I just tell him, thank you so very much for protecting us, right? Because he's doing his job. And I do appreciate having a guard dog. He's in apartment number 1, so he's on the first floor right by the door. And like I said, he is the security force for this apartment building, which we all do appreciate. There actually is another dog in here, but that dog is less of a guard dog. So the neighbor Patrick works 2 different jobs, right? So he has kind of has a restaurant job at night, and then he works at of all things, a mushroom farm out in the country, about an hour away from here. So he's gone quite a lot. He's really good about walking his dog, and he has a friend that stops over and hangs out with the dog, that's training the dog, that's also walking the dog, which is fabulous. But he has been going off nonstop. And as I said, he is our front door security, and he only goes off when people come, mostly when people come, and every once in a while when someone leaves, depending on to what degree he likes you. I believe that is his issue. Anyway, um, the dogs in the neighborhood have been going berserk for 5 days straight. Now, I've lived in this neighborhood, and like I said, it is the dog loving capital of Cincinnati. And I have lived here on and off since 1996, longer than I even lived in my family home. And I have never experienced what I've been experiencing for the last 5 days. The dogs are literally going off. So I was on our Nextdoor Northside publication called Nextdoor Northside. You guys have Nextdoor all over the United States. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. And on Nextdoor Northside, people were saying that not only were the dogs going crazy for the last couple of days, but also the coyotes were. And we've had many X-class solar flares back to 2012, and as long as I can remember, or as long as I've been looking at it. But I have never, ever seen quite the reaction from animals. In fact, I went out to the gas station late last night, and when I came back and was parking my car in the parking lot, which we're really not supposed to use it, but for some reason I felt called to park in the parking lot instead of on the street last night. There was a skunk, and as soon as I got out of my car and hit the alarm button, the skunk went right under my car. Well, I got upstairs and I realized I don't have my phone. My phone is in the car. So I knew the skunk was underneath the car. And I also knew that I had to hit the button to unlock, and it was going to flash lights and do all kinds of everything. So I was like, listen, I come in peace. Do not spray. Do not spray me. Nobody moves. Nobody gets hurt. The animals are acting very, very bizarre. And when there's sirens and X-class solar flares, sometimes the dogs will bark for a few minutes or a half hour. This has been going on for 5 days. And I said something to my neighbor about, like, your dog's been just barking like crazy for days and days. And He didn't know anything about it, I guess, because the dog, not only is the X-flare really affecting the dog, but the dog's owner, Patrick, has not been there as much. So there's something very different about it. I don't know if, um, like I said, I believe there's a multitude of things. These are ranging higher than they're saying. What they're reporting, as far as solar information, is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and neither is anything else. So hopefully you're taking everything that you see and everything that you hear with a grain of salt. There are different levels to the game. That's why I started talking about synchronicities and everybody seeing these number sequences. That is your avatar ringing a bell and letting you know that you've gone to a new level of the game. We are a spirit. We are a soul. We are a spiritual essence that is borrowing, leasing a physical body so that we can express ourselves. There's a few other things that I want to talk about. I did a good job last time. Pat myself on the back for not making a 3-hour video. So I was happy for that. Levels of the game. The other reason why I'm talking about levels of the game is because if you're on energetically what I've been calling the first wave, which apparently I guess Dolores Cannon has information about the waves as well. And from my brief understanding of her, we are on a similar wavelength with that, but I have not studied her work. So the first frequency, the first wave of consciousness, expanded consciousness, knows that self in this least avatar, this soul, this essence of spirit that's in a least body, so to speak, experiences different levels of the game. And so when I talk about the first wave of consciousness, I'm talking about you understand that you create your life individually, and we also create life on Earth and in this sector of the universe very collectively as well. So you know that there is storm manipulation. You know that there is storm seeding. You are well aware that there's all these different pieces of and parts of technology that maybe not all of humanity knows about, but you are aware of it. So when I'm speaking to levels of the game, I'm saying if you know that these storms are hyped up and jacked up or cloud seeded or blue beamed or any other technology is being used, I don't know that I want to give them credit and say that this is a creation, solely their creation. This is hurricane season. I believe that they know how to manipulate weather just as much as they know how to manipulate the general public. And so while I'm not feeling like these are completely conjured up storms out of nowhere with technology, I believe that they are perhaps enhancing these storms to make them worse and possibly steer them in certain directions. But if you know that, for the love of God, please stop posting 1,000 times a day that this is going to be the worst catastrophic, cataclysmic storm that Earth has ever seen. Because if you're at that point of expanded awareness, then you should be well aware that the amount of time and energy you give to the storm makes this storm bigger. It makes it faster and it makes it more destructive. Now, if you're on the second wave and you just now learned all these things about cloud seeding and blue beam and everything, then I guess you're just going to go ahead and share that either way. At this point, and at the point we've been at for a really long time, there is no waking someone up by shoving them off the blue beam cliff or shoving them off the Illuminati cliff. Okay. Now, people say to me all the time, well, there's all these horrific things going on, and, everybody should know about pedophilia, or everybody should know about, this certain thing at a time, all at one time. And I can tell you, I remember the day, I remember the article, I remember what I was wearing when I read about this. Okay. I will never forget finding out about pedophilia. Okay. I will never, ever, ever forget about that day that I discovered it. And I kind of knew it was going on, but the reasons behind it and the energy sucking and the vampiric stuff that was all connected to that, I didn't know that. And when I read that, you guys, my vibration tanked down to the lowest frequency I've ever had in my entire life. My frequency tanked lower than when I was assaulted by my best friend. That's how bad this was. Now, if you don't understand why everyone doesn't learn about cloud seeding or blue beam or pedophilia or the Illuminati or the corruption that has been a big part of this section of the universe and our planet for a long time. But if we all found out about everything on the same day, the planet would not make it. Or the planet may make it, the planet may ascend, but humanity wouldn't ascend with her. We cannot try to get a group of 1 million people to understand pedophilia or blue beam technology or alien invasion or anything else in one afternoon. And it's not because people are not doing a good job having every attempt to distract me with whatever's going on outside with this loud motorcycle, motor car, whatever's going on. Such the way that it seems to be when I make videos. If we all found out about the detrimental plan for humanity in the same moment, even if our planet Earth did make it and our section of the universe ascended, you think we're going to make it on this ascension path as a humanity when we all tanked the frequency that I tanked when I found out about this? Let people find out on their own, okay? Or when they become curious or when they ask you. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people that I thought were at a certain point of expanded consciousness talking about the most catastrophic storm planet Earth has ever seen. Okay. We don't even know if they're telling us the truth about that. Now, I've been saying this to you for many years. They can have a plan, right? We all have a right to create and co-create. So they can put anything on paper or in the computer or have their little secret meetings, and they can plan any crap that they want to plan. That's their right as a creator. However, we don't know, other than the fact that it is a plan, if anything evolving around or revolving around that plan has any effing truth to it. Do we? Because if we're not in Florida, if we're not in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're telling us that there's 175-mile-an-hour winds, and you're sitting there going, oh, well, I'm in Alabama or Ohio, they must surely know what they're talking about when they're talking about 175-mile-an-hour winds. I'm telling you right now that it isn't happening. Okay. There may be a 50-mile-an-hour wind coming up the Gulf Coast of Mexico heading towards Florida, but it is not 175 miles per hour. Now, why would they be telling you that it was 175-mile-an-hour winds if there weren't? If that wasn't the case, because the more people believe it, the more people talk about it, the more people post about it, the more energy you're giving to it. And I'm not saying this to chastise anybody. I was just a little bit blown away. As I mentioned, I spent more time this week on Facebook than I have in the whole last year. And I'm blown away by the people that I thought knew where energy goes, where all this attention is flowing out your mouth, through your post, through any way that you're using this least body to express yourself. Whatever you're saying, wherever that energy is flowing, you are making whatever it is you're talking about, writing about, blogging about, making a video about, you are expanding it, you are increasing it. So I wanted to share that with you. And you may not be a person that's doing that, but really watch your level of exposure to things like that. What I see, okay, in the ways that I see things, as we've got winds coming up the Gulf at about 45, 50 miles an hour, okay? And by saying that, I'm creating it too. That is honestly what I see. But if you choose to see that, or if you choose to see it wash out into the ocean and do no damage, then that's the way it will be. All right. There are levels to this game. If you know all this information and you know about all this technology and you know about their plan, are you agreeing to it? Because if you're repeating all of the information and you're exasperating a storm, which is the last thing we need right now. We have enough of that. Okay. I know they're going to keep trying to push it. I don't know if they're pushing it so we don't have an election. I don't know if they're pushing this so we can postpone the election. I guess I can take my paper off the comments because it's just all the people that I know and love so much. And once again, no trolls. So whoever's, whatever algorithm is monitoring my channel to suppress it, I suppose in a way is protecting me. So thank you. And there you go. They can say anything they want, right? I can come on YouTube and say anything I want. It's my least body, my spirit, making an expression to you, right? I choose to tell the truth, the whole truth, and the best of what I know to be the truth. Doesn't mean I know everything. Obviously, I do not. That's why I talk to you guys and make these videos so that we can be the puzzle pieces together. So we can change this, so we can solve this, and so we can move forward into the direction that we want, which is peace and freedom and sovereignty. And that is where we're going. If you haven't watched the video called The Universal End of the Time Loop, you really need to watch that, okay? This is like the angry ex-boyfriend at the last second throwing all your crap out the window, okay? That's what it is, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you, right? Why are they doing that? Because they don't have another plan. They don't even have looking glass technology. The only thing they can do is give you a story and watch you bring it to life or watch you end their story. They are showing you a story. They are giving you a creation or a paradigm, and they are seeing what you are going to do with it. So think very wisely and use your energy very, very wisely when it comes to this. There are so many things going on that nobody has any idea, because literally you could write one headline and say, oh, there's a port strike. And next thing you know, there's no toilet paper, there's no water, there's no nothing. I just happened to be out of toilet paper when this crap happened, right? We don't have a lot of people looking at what this really is, looking at what it could possibly be, or doing a meditation on it. Okay, maybe you and I are doing that, but we have a larger part of the population that is not doing that. They're just going in to freak out mode. As I mentioned in a video 3333, 33 minutes and 33 seconds. There you go. And threes are all about communication. It's what I'm trying to get a message across to you when I told you the port strike goes from Maine down the East Coast and then over to Texas. Okay. If you were to superimpose or lay the military map over top of it, it goes exactly from Maine down to Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. This is a military operation. Now, people are telling me that the strike is ended. They say the strike is ended, but there's some 90-day period of something. Okay, you want to know what it is? It's a 90-day period of watch our borders and save our ass. Okay, 60,000 people showed up to the Trump rally in New York City. 60,000 people. The amount of snipers there were insane. I just saw a few minute clip about that. If you superimpose the military map with the port strike, they are one in the same geographically, in case you didn't watch that video. This is military action. I told you guys like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I pulled cards. What did I say? The death card. It's over, right? Death, it's over. There's no looking back. Travel by land. 3 of Wands. I'm waiting for my ships to come in, which is travel by water. And the Chariot, travel by air. I told you guys whatever was happening was going to happen. All of this that's happening was going to happen through the air. You can go back 3 or 4 weeks ago if you happen to miss that when I talked about all of this and that which is happening now that I told you about. I want to say probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. I haven't been wrong about anything that I have said here. 90-day port strike is just the military covering our border and overseeing what is going on. Now, as you know, other than my little jaunt for a couple of days on Facebook, reading people's comments about the storms just to see if people were going to, if anybody was going to stand up and say, hey, how much energy are we going to give to this thing we don't want, that we don't desire? Do we want to see more destruction, more havoc, whatever? So that's what I was doing in there, right? And it's so weird how this happens. Sometimes it happens by reading someone's comment. Sometimes it happens by laying in bed, breathing in my meditation without music. Sometimes it happens when I'm running down the street. It happens so many different ways. And I told you before, not just the Air Force. And I even told you in that video, I don't know all the branches of the military, right? A couple of days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, when I was reading someone's comments about something else, I was like, oh, this is it. This is, okay, so you know we have a bunch of organized military, that's for sure. Yes, I agree with you, Rennie, totally. Watching it and freaking out about it. And Rosie O'Neill is somebody on Facebook that I think probably a couple of hundred of you have in common with me. She is there, and I don't remember her exact location. She said that she is not leaving, and whatever's meant to be is meant to be. And, she's not giving energy to the storm. It was much longer. I'm shortening Rosie's post for you. The 90-day port strike continuation. And I don't know that there's any information. Okay, so I got this message about checking the ports, and I'm like, I didn't even know what it meant. I said that in the video. I looked it up and saw there was a port strike, and it was literally on one of the news channels 2 hours before I received that message. So I looked it up. And then I knew that if they didn't come to resolution by the last day of September, before midnight struck on October 1st, that they were going to have a full-fledged strike. So the next morning, I looked at several different news outlets to see if I could find if there was any resolution. And I looked for a couple of days, and it was all the same information as before. There wasn't anything new. They didn't say that they didn't come to agreement or they did come to an agreement, nothing. And now they're just saying they have this 90-day, like, I don't know if it's a contingency period or what. I'm telling you, it's 90 days of them keeping these ports closed for things that could possibly come in shipping containers. Think outside the box, not just children, but ammunition, or I don't want to say anything else other than that, I don't think. They are keeping the ports safe. They are trying to make sure we have an election without casualties, even though when I've looked at this election for the last 4 years, I don't get anything other than joy, peace, and happiness. And thank God we finally have our freedom. But I don't get an outcome past that. So to me, that could say it's postponed, or maybe we don't even have an election. I don't even know. As I said, we want to be mindful where our attention is going to. The other thing I want to say, I think if you go back in ancient scriptures, and I haven't read really many ancient scriptures myself other than the Bible and the I Ching, there is always talk about comets. Why is there always talk about comets if it's just a little icy dirt ball floating around in space? Why did every ancient scripture talk about the coming of certain comets and what happened when those comets were present? Okay. I had this, maybe it's far out to you experience, and I was like, oh, I just heard, oh, comets are nothing but spaceships. And I was like, now that makes more sense. I totally felt like that made sense, right? So today, just for fun, I think that message was yesterday. Um, I looked up the definition of comment, and I think I was like Googling it. So I think it went to Wikipedia or something, right? You know what the definition of a comet is? Icy dirt ball. You think all these ancient scriptures would have been writing about an icy dirt ball? And oh, I'm sorry, did they just make one little quick rotation around Earth with their glasses on, eating their popcorn or what? Give me a break. Icy dirt ball. Okay. That's Wikipedia's definition of comet. Icy dirt ball. Well, guess what? If there's ice, there's water. And if there's water, there's life. So these so-called comets are not inhabited. I'm inhibited, perhaps. These icy dirt balls, as Wikipedia, as our government likes to call them, are spaceships. And these spaceships show up throughout history in all ancient texts when something very interesting or very earth altering is happening. Okay. Oh, so then we have this comment that they're deciding to call a second moon, right? And that is what, September 8th to November 25th or something like that. Oh, so it just happens. So the icy dirt ball just happens to be here at the same time as the 90-day port strike? Are you kidding me? Like, are they overseeing the port strike, this icy ball? Remember, if there's ice, there's water, and where there's water, there is life. You can learn that just about from anybody. Um, like when they announced that there was water on Mars, I knew people that watched the news, they were like I work for a living. I have a family. I have kids to feed. Why do I care if there's water on Mars? You care if there's water on Mars because guess what? That means there's life on Mars. That means there's life on this comet that just happens to be in our atmosphere for the 90-day period of our port strike. You think I made this up? I actually didn't even know this until right now. This is what happens when I can chill out, relax, and talk without interrupting myself. Often in my own daily life, I interrupt myself or these visions or these thoughts because I'm hungry or I'm thirsty or the phone rings, right? All these things that happen in our 3D life, right? I don't think ancient scriptures would be going on and on about an icy dirt ball. Okay. You see ancient scriptures talking about people making snowmen or playing in the mud or making snow angels. There must have been some significant reason they talked about these comets and the happenings that came when these comets came. And though I haven't read anything other than the Bible and the I Ching, I have studied other people who would do a lot of snippets of things in ancient antiquity writings and different gospels. And I did read the Dead Sea Scrolls and things like that. Why is everybody talking about an icy dirt ball? There's way more to this than we can possibly imagine. There are levels to this game. I have asked this before, but if there's anybody here that's interested, I think I talked about this in my last video. after reading some of the comments on footage from North Carolina, I was disturbed, to say the least. And I figured out an exercise to be an anchor for whatever frequency they needed in North Carolina. I found a way to anchor it in and then emanate it back out to the people there to help them. Okay, because I can't get in my tank and drive down there and help them. Neither do I have a plane. Maybe I could borrow one from the Kardashians, but wait, they're just about to go down to deep waters, I believe, with Mr. P. Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs, which is nothing but a distraction from the New World Order, because right now, as they're showing you, nothing but P. Diddy and everyone he's ever had an affiliation with and all of his videos and everything else, they are coming together to sign us, United States, over to the UN. Okay, that's the big story they're trying to cover up. Okay, you got to cover up every which way. You can only have so many black eyes, and you can only use so much makeup to cover it up. Okay, I'm telling you by telling you that the icy dirt ball is here. At the same time, we are having what I would only call as a military action, because those superimposed military map with the port strike is identical. That is not a coincidence. And we have an icy dirt ball hanging out in our atmosphere, which they're calling a second moon, which why are they even calling it a second moon? So people will be looking up and trying to find a second moon instead of realizing that you're trying to sign the United States over to the effing UN right now and make us one nation under something. But believe you me, it's not God. I'm telling you that right now. P. Diddy and all this other crap is nothing but a distraction. Yes, it also is going to pull that Hollywood house of cards and music industry house of cards on top of itself. And that's great news. We've known this is coming for a long time, but we can't let it distract us from what's really happening. And we can't let these things pull us out of joy. If we feel disturbed by Bluebeam Technologies, what they're using, what they're doing, if we feel disturbed by what's going on in North Carolina, put your body there and anchor in whatever frequency you think those people need right now, and then emanate it back out to those people. We don't physically have to be there. We have many obstacles, most of us, to physically being there. We can't necessarily do that. Put yourself there. You can put yourself in New Zealand or Canada or North Carolina or anywhere you want and anchor in any frequency you think those people need, and then stand there and emanate it back out like a lighthouse. They need that more than anything else. The last thing I want to say to you, maybe some of you are aware of this. This came to my attention, I can't remember if it was this morning or last night. Okay. In my younger years, when I heard about the militia was termed or deemed to be the same thing as the Hell's Angels, right? The motorcycle gang that was drugs, rock and roll, and basically violence. Okay. The militia was deemed to be the same thing. Okay. I'm not from a military family. No one in my family has ever been in any side of the military. And so there are a lot of things that I don't know about. I just relay the messages that I get from you, that I get, and I give them to you. Militia is somebody that has already been in the service and is no longer in the service. And just because you're an ex-military doesn't mean you're militia, okay? There are people that go to the military, they want to fight for this country, they want to be brave, they want to be honorable, they want to do the right thing, and they want this country to be safe, right? So a lot of people go with that assumption that, you know, they are protecting Americans or keeping Americans safe, okay? And some people come back from there, some people don't. And some people come back from there and they didn't realize what was actually happening. But a big chunk of the military, any branch you're talking about, the Marines, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, whatever, they realized that there is something way bigger and way more deceitful going on than what was being shared with the public and what was being shared with them, those people fighting on the front lines. So militia doesn't mean just someone who's in the military who came back and now they're militia. It means that the people that went there and saw things started to wake up to the things that were not as they seemed. They were fighting for reasons that were totally different than the reasons that were giving to them under the guise of protecting America, being honorous, and being victorious. They realized that that was not what was going on. And so when they left the military, they joined the militia. And the militia is a group of people, some to greater extents than others, just like we all have different waves of consciousness or conscious expandedness. But the militia is ex-military who knows and who were and who are preparing for the day the government gets out of hand. Okay. Now, we did have militia show up when it came to the closing of small businesses in Detroit and some other places in the United States when there was some really crazy wrongdoing sort of things happening with people's personal businesses. We did have small scale militia show up during COVID in some cities to help with certain things, right? I think even Seattle let the militia do whatever they wanted because they had no police involvement in what was going on in their city whatsoever, because the actual police and the government was terrified. There is nothing to be afraid of when it comes to the militia. I'm telling you that right now. What they saw is the reason we are fighting, the reasons that we are at war, and the people we are at war with are not for the reasons that are not given to them or given to the American people either. The militia are not going to run a little kid off of their bike going down the street, right? They're not going to start pulling over and kidnapping people. It's an organized establishment based on the fact that there will, and there have been already, but there will become a time when the government, are we seeing this or what, is so freaking out of control that the militia steps in. Now, is the militia going to tell you they're stepping in? Not unless you're a militia board, not unless you are a member of the militia and you are in contact with them. They are not. And they are probably coming up the backside of the mountain in North Carolina right now. That's a message I got either last night or this morning. I can't seem to remember which. Okay. So what does that mean for you? I don't really know because I see things in advance. So did the militia head up the mountain in North Carolina 2 days ago? Is it going to be tomorrow or next week? I don't know. What the militia does and what the militia is ex-military who plans for a time when the people need to be assisted or saved from the government. Can't think of a more appropriate time for the militia to show up right now. Yeah, I know. The only thing I don't get, Christina, and anyone else that's been talking about this with the whole lithium thing, like I get the commodities thing, right? Because they're always after commodities, right? Anyone's old enough to remember that Willie Nelson got arrested, thrown in jail, and had his property taken away for tax evasion. Well, guess what? There was a whole group of people in the mid-United States that had proof that they'd paid their taxes the entire duration of the time they weren't paying their taxes according to the IRS. Because even if you have copies of your taxes from the IRS, if the IRS says you don't, it doesn't matter what paperwork you have. They went in and took a bunch of land from people for Monsanto, cornfields, wheat fields, and soybean fields. Okay, it was a land grab. It started in the 80s and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And that's when they decided that the IRS itself was unconstitutional. It's not like they don't do this. It's not like they've been planning it. It's not like they've done it before, right? Now, militia is not going to come out for some petty little grievance or some squabbling thing between the right and the left or the Democrats or the Republicans. They saved their food, their water, their ammunition, and their strength for a time when the government got out of control. Now, don't get me wrong, they do things behind the scenes, and there are many organized things that I'm sure they've been doing for a while. But I'm talking about seeing them up close and personal. So if you're one of these people on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and you're seeing short videos, just for example, oh, there's an unmarked helicopter, there's an unmarked, car, there's an unmarked tank, whatever. Don't freak out. I'm telling you right now, if the militia is not headed up the backside of the mountain tonight, it's within the next week. I'm seeing things pretty closely because I just said everything that's going to happen is going to happen um, by air. Okay. It's all been communication. It's all been hurricanes. It's all been people making videos from certain geographical locations. It's all been on air. Exactly like I said, telling you. If you see people in North Carolina or in your neighborhood or in unmarked cars or vehicles or even helicopters, okay? The militia is not some underground peanut gallery sitting around smoking pot, drinking whiskey, talking about, slashing the neighbor's tires. I'm telling you, they have resources and they are connected to people that you wouldn't believe. There are people in the government, there are people on social media, there are people in Hollywood, there are all kinds of people everywhere that are ex military that have military connections. So, as much fun as it is to watch some of these people go down in the flames of history, um, let's try to keep in mind where our energy is going and what we are actually paying attention to at the moment. I think that's it. And that's kind of a lot. Please, in whatever way that you can, if it's sharing this video or just telling people, and I'm not talking about, telling people that you think are completely asleep. I'm just saying, you may know people in these areas where it's storming or where there's political chaos or where there's a bunch of crap going on. Okay. I'm saying the military is about to be maybe joined and also maybe an adversary of the militia itself. Okay. Um, I don't advise getting in the way of any of this. We are all at different levels of a game. We are a soul. We are, in essence, any borrowed, leased physical vehicle. And we are here to express ourselves. As always, I'm not telling you that I know everything or that I have all the answers. I'm saying be in calm and be in peace. And anytime you see an area that looks like it's in trouble or feel like it's in trouble, know that you can go there, that you can be there, that you can anchor that love frequency and emanate it back out, or anchor that harmony and emanate that back out, or anchor that peace in your physical body and stand there like a lighthouse in whatever geographical location you feel the need, and be the lighthouse. We came here to be the lighthouse. I thank you so much for being here at this time. Please let people know what's going on both sides of the fence. Also, as I've been saying for the last 2 years, We are the most advanced technology on this planet. So if they're telling you we had an X solar flare 2.3, and you can't stand up, you can bet your bottom dollar that that's foul play on reporting what it actually is. And I will reiterate one more time, I have never, ever seen animals, skunks, deer, dogs, coyotes be like this for 5 days straight. Okay? Keep that in mind. Keep yourself very hydrated. I'm not one of those people that's ever going to tell you what to eat, what to drink, and not what to drink. But as many things as you can ingest with water in them, watermelon, raspberries, oranges, pineapples, leafy greens, anything you can do to hydrate yourself. Because at some point, at some massive X-class solar flare conglomeration of three that have attached itself together as one big blob of plasma, you need more than water. You need citrus. Um, you need food that are dense, but also filled with water as well. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, thank you for your kind comments, your love, your honor, and your respect. I appreciate you more than you know.